consistent team to another. Duke and Edgy trying to hold on that top spot on the leaderboard. Just outside of the zone, but luckily for them, they don't got much to travel. The biggest worry for them and some of the other teams in the lobby is the environment they're gonna have to go through the zone. You're gonna go down the mountain, across the river, up Naughty Nets. There's so many different terrains that you have to watch out for. As Onwin got his back against the wall, that's gonna be a trade. Zypha goes down, but at least he gets Chris for his efforts. Now it's just him and Yuz looking at each other through the wall in a 1v1.
The frustration that's gonna start setting in, it's gonna feel like you're on a long line at the theme park for your favorite ride. It's gonna take you quite some time. Yuz is gonna fall right there, and in the zone, On1 finds himself the siphon, the med miss, and everything else he needs to stay alive for a little bit longer. Bila and Knifer is gonna be the crew watching this all go down, and they have such loadouts that they are not worried or pressured at all. They, in fact, get On1 served up because of the Storm's damage, as it does start to do much more damage. Now, we are currently in zone 7. This starts to do 5 tick, and you can see how much health it's costing him while he's offsetting it with the big heals there from the legendary slurp. So really is extremely difficult, and the zone pulls far west and south here to where teams are not at. So much tougher rotate for some.
Yeah, notice they're shooting the flare gun at the ground because of the train right now. It will catch fire and do some damage if it's kind of positioned right. You see it on the other side as they become a focus of the lobby. And for Knifer and Bila, this is a huge moment. With ODM no longer at their drop spot, they're forced to adapt, and with both of them having kinetic blades, there's no excuses for the rest of this game.
That's right. There are no excuses for the rest of the day either. You're really starting to run low on games here. We are in the back half, game 4 of North America. The first ever merging of the East and West servers, combining all of the players into one player pool now as they get to compete against one another. We have multiple reigning FNCS champions now under the same hub here. Acorn and Cold being, of course, the most talked about on the day here, and putting up the performances as well.
Oof.
They're back in the
And this is making it look absolutely easy, taking down team after team, dropping shield after shield. The interesting thing, though, you kind of notice only 343 above the damage threshold. Some of these players that they're taking out didn't necessarily have full shield, didn't necessarily have full HP, which is why they're trying to keep things rolling for themselves as they continue to collect that Storm Surge. And that augment, once again, Mythic Munitions. You see the Mythic Tactical Pistol. That's where a lot of teams late in this game are picking up the damage and are finding their eliminations.
It really is an excellent point. They are just cleaning up the scraps here. They're getting by just fine. It's not like they're struggling at the moment. Right above them, you have, of course, Bacon just eyeing things out. But the zone's going to be the highest priority here as it pulls very far. In fact, there's no one who was there quite early. Everyone just used their early rotates to get in front. Those are, of course, those kinetic blades coming into place here. Let's see it. We get to zoom out for a second here. Jump on over to those teams. It's Booga. It's Threats.
You kind of already see it. Not only is it far, like you said, it's up and down the different elevations that these teams might have to expend more mats than they would typically want to in a position like this. While some, like Booga and Threats, they're going to be able to save a lot of the resources since they don't have far to travel to try to get in the zone. As they continue to look back and gate teams out, 800 above the damage threshold. For the rest of this game, in theory, Storm Surge is not going to be a worry.
That's right. If you read the zone early, you obviously realized and recognized we have to get to this big mountain. We have to set up quick. And that's what Booga and Threats do perfectly fine. And this is why they're such decorated duos, right? They're just that good. The experience really starting to shine through here. But for Duke and Edgy, they say, hey, let's take a different strategy. We're going to come in late. We're going to play this low ground. And now they're down here looking for any kind of refresher to put themselves in the mix. The zone could potentially fly off the edge as well, so the terrain is going to get very intense here. Sphinx and Foyo really flying under the radar so far, staying consistent, finding their eliminations, making their way into endgame. We could have just a surprise runner as we start to close out the day if they keep this up.
Yeah, it's a team that has a playstyle that maybe not it's the most flashy, it may not be the most exciting, but they're getting the job done on a consistent basis. They're one of the teams that qualified for all of our weekly finals,
right,
and that's what got them into the grand finals and skipping Surge Week overall. So it's going to be a big moment for them as they close the day out, as Acorn and Colt trying to make up for lost time. It's almost like they didn't go down early in game number 1, and that's a scary sight. Even though they didn't get very, very many points, they made up for that time, and you got to imagine what they're going to do now that they're on fire.
It's really what happens when you start to shape up the meta in a way that you have such a crazy mobility item like the Kinetic Blade in play here. It's so accessible, you can get from point A to point B. It allows you to either be aggressive or be passive, get to a point of position. Just play for the placements here. Duke and Edgy, of course, just want to continue to stay alive, take it slow, and earn their way on up to the top, but they are now below the surge, so that whole conversation about slow and right now, they really need to look around and find a fight. They find visuals right above them. Sounds like there's a battle going on up there, but they don't quite find anything with the tags they put down. But Byla, completely different story. Already knock in hand. Now eyeing up the high ground. They're giving Bugha and Threats a run for their money. They're making it difficult.
Oh, but everything comes crashing down for a moment to the high ground they were trying to take. Vanishes right before our very eyes. They're continuously trying to fight, but Byla goes down. That's Threats who's fighting back tooth and nail. Backed up Knifer, and that's how they were able to separate it and make for an easy elimination. You gotta imagine now that Bugha and Threats, if they're able to hold the high ground, they took down the player with the mythic overclock pulse rifles. Now it's theirs to claim, and if they have the high ground, that's a ton of pressure they could put on the lobby.
Well, it's crazy. It's gotten broken down again. No one is allowing players to get situated or settled here in game 4. It is a complete battle. They're literally kinetic blading their way through those builds consistently over and over. We don't have Kings of Hype just yet, but we do have teams in trouble. Duke and Edgy are one of the few here. They get to the front side of the zone. They are just playing excellent right now as far as their rotates go.
Yeah, they're doing it through many different ways as well. High ground, low ground, staying ahead of the zone. Duke and Edgy are just playing so consistent, but I talked about what he picked up. He has the high ground, and now we're seeing what you can do when all that loot is coming to fruition. The pressure is going to be so hard for some of these teams to recover. That's why the name of the game at this stage is stay away from ultimate low ground.
That's right. Cold and Acorn are down here, though. 4 Elims in trouble. No builds to work with, and the heals are starting to run thin, but I do see a flint knock, so there's plenty of plays to be made here. Let's watch Cold get through this will build. They're on the tarp now. They're eyeing up these players here, and look at this. They're working together. The double pickaxe. Edgy is there on the other side of the wall. Can they get the conversion? Of course they can. And there's a couple builds, but they're used up pretty quickly. And another little crevice to sleep through. And now it's going to come down to the reaction.
Yeah, these are big points that they're picking up while they're in absolute shambles. Not much to work with, but at least Acorn gives him something. 8 builds, anything to defend yourself. But you know Cold, one of the most skilled players as an individual. Something is better than nothing as the pressure from above continues to be poured down. They find another elimination and a huge siphon that I don't know if they can actually pick it up. They're going to have to sacrifice some HP, and that's Cold. He goes back to the store to try to find it, but in comes Pollo, in comes Sphinx, down goes Acorn. It's all up to Cold. He gets dropped. Skittles as well. Sphinx and Pollo late in the game are on a terror.
This is exactly why we talked them out. They have just been so consistent, keeping a low profile, making their way to endgame, and now they're here to make a name for themselves on the NA America region here. Let's see what North America's got as Bugha comes down. He's going to go ahead and throw himself into the fight. Trashy sticks behind to stay for the heal, but Bugha jumps in and finds one, and now he's taken out. Did they go too soon? We'll find out. Pollo, Sphinx have so much time, 20 seconds on the clock here to make a move. They could win this.
Yeah, the Shadow Tracker pistol could be big, especially if anybody's trying to kinetic blade to the outside of zone. That mark for a few seconds gonna let him know where we're at. Baka takes some tag. His position is gonna be revealed, but Threats almost smooth towards the high ground, getting tagged out. He has all the heals for his team, which is why we saw Bugha drop down low.
No way!
Baka. Down goes Baka. Sphinx yet again. He picks up his 4th elimination. The med miss is huge. Look at that pile of loot he just found.
This is not your typical heal off. This is one that you had to absolutely fight for. Sphinx puts it all on the line, steps into the zone, gets the siphon. Is it going to be enough? He has to survive for a little bit longer, but no, Threats finds a heal when it matters most, and he does survive in the end. If there's going to be a heal off, I want it to play out just like that.
Yeah, there it goes. And we were kind of talking backstage, kind of questioning a little bit. Is Threats that guy? Is Bugha that guy? We talk about the chat that's going on around this team. Can they take that top spot? Because it's been all about Cold and Acorn. Well, guess what? The question has been answered. The Kings have arrived.
Well, we've seen the simulations. We know what can happen when you put such exceptional, decorated players together. And just like that, Threats and Bugha do enough to seal the deal and get the win. That was an exceptional and incredible game for not only Dignitas Bugha, but Man City's threats.
Yeah, and you saw some teams go down early, Kanata and Aegis. You saw some teams perform well above standards, including Bugha and Threats in that victory royale in the 4th game. So leaderboard, once again, must be tossed turned upside down. So I'm going to go throw it over Zeke and our analyst one more time to let us know where everybody stands.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Fantastic set of games so far. First off, give a big welcome to Kelly, who is joining us here and will be with us for the last set of games. My gosh, though, Bugha and Threats. I like that Jacob kind of asked the question, is Bugha that guy? Is Threats that guy? Seems like they're both him.
They're both the guy, and you could see that all the way from Zone 7 where they did that dead side rotation, playing so smart that allowed them to get the advantage when Zone 8 did pull, and they just kind of had a little bit of a luck of the draw there where the zone did pull directly towards where they were, and because of that advantageous position, they were able to get height early and then hold it for pretty much the rest of the game.
Yeah, and honestly, just because of that exact position they were in, they were able to, last so long throughout endgame. Yeah, tons of eliminations. We can see it like 12 eliminations taking height. And again, too, the timing of them moving throughout height. Look at, and also having that gun just tears through builds, especially when you're on high. It's crazy.
Yeah, the pulse rifle incredibly beneficial, and Threats making a great play right here, making sure that he had to try and grab the heal offs because we saw Sphinx doing the same thing, and we know that if you're on the low ground, that's where there's going to be a lot of loot on the ground because that's where all the players are dropping, so he couldn't allow Sphinx to do that by himself. Threats drops down, finds a lucky heal, to be fair, and they grab that victory royale.
Absolutely. Well, hey, time to take a look at the standings. How are things shaping up after these last few games? Look at this. Edgy, Duke, they are still leading the pack, but that lead is starting to shrink just a little bit. Acorn and Cold look to jump up now, jumping up in that 2nd place. And after that victory royale, Bugha there and Threats in 5th place. They've now jumped up to 2 placements. Right now, if you ask me coming into today, is this a top 5 that you would expect to see in NA? Now I feel like it's starting to kind of be that top 5 I would expect to see, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams that we're seeing here are the big top dogs out of NA. I mean, we got, of course, Acorn and Cold, our reigning champs, but Dukes and Edgy, Dignitas is definitely happy with a lot of their players right now, and I'm sure Dukes is one of them. He has been doing a great job carrying his team. A lot of kind of solo impact points coming from this player right here, and a lot of that has to do with how they're taking these early engagements, allowing them to get that much-needed Storm Surge tags, although as I say that, we can see that they're below Storms here, so although they're able to grab those 2 eliminations at the start, that still isn't as much as they need, but Edgy doing a good job holding out strong in solo towards the end game.
I think it's interesting as well. Normally we're kind of used to seeing it on the other side, right? It's normally Dukes that is actually the one finding the solo impacts. But again, Edgy's like, hey, I'm here pulling my weight. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, honestly, too, to see that at the end, Sphinx literally being like, nah, we're going to go look for heals. I know we talked about it. That's kind of crazy, though. He had to think ahead and say, all right, how's it going to be possible for me to win this game? I'm going to try all that I can. He got very lucky, finding those heals. But again, too, smart going in the direction where the storm came from because he knows that that's where they will be. He just played this out so incredibly well.
Oh yeah, sticking to the low ground, especially with that legendary Havoc pump shotgun, being able to take down incredible top players like Baka. I'm fairly certain he also took down Cold and Acorn. So getting the last heals right there, just a little too late with that heal. But of course, grabbing 2nd place is doing a good job, and sitting in 4th place overall is pretty great.
You say 2nd as well, Acorn and Cold jumping up. Remember, at the end of tomorrow, after 12 games total, we're looking for that winner, of course. The top 3 will also take us to Globals. Acorn and Cold, they already have their spot in Global. So right now, it's kind of like a victory lap, but they're also looking to kind of play spoiler for everyone else, Kelly.
I mean, yeah, the beams that Acorn is doing with just the green red eye is absolutely insane. I love the fact that we see him pick up Mythic Munition a lot because that pistol can come in handy so many times.
I was looking and I was like, Acorn, I thought you were IGL. You're over here fragging out, getting all these eliminations. What's going on, dude? But I absolutely love the way that he played this out. They were really smart, and unfortunately, you can get caught in sticky situations like that. But they are actually, we are seeing them continuously move up the leaderboard like we expected. So I will, I'm a big fan. We already know this, but I really do think we will continue to see them progressing throughout these next games and moving into tomorrow.
Do you guys feel like right now we're seeing kind of more of these duos heat up, and, you know, we kind of have to have this conversation. Some duos like to be day one teams, and they look to perform their best on day one. Others look to do it on day two. Is this top 5 maybe indicative of day 1, day 2, somewhere in the middle? What do you think, Kelly?
I'm feeling like it's kind of top heavy right now. A lot of the teams that we see getting into that kind of top 5 position are doing that time and time again. And that's looking a little rough for the other teams that are below. It doesn't even matter if you are a day 2 team. When the teams that are in 1st through 5th are 80 points the rest ahead of the pack, that's going to be a little rough for a lot of these other teams to kind of pick up where they need to in day 2.
Yeah, and I think these regions coming together, they're trying to feel it out and just kind of see what they have to deal with moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do a little check-in here with some of the stats we're seeing after just the first 4 games of the competition. Now, we have to kind of talk through this a little bit, right? So right out the gate, solo impact points, pretty simple, right? Right now, Threats doing a very good job performing by himself. This is just saying, hey, Threats, he's dope. He's at the top when it comes to performing when he's by himself.
I mean, look at all the stats that Threats is taking right now. Not just solo impact points, carrying Booga a little bit on his shoulders, but also the most damage dealt, the best damage ratio, meaning that for every damage he's done, that's the percentage of damage that he has not taken. So 2.4 is incredible there. And then distance traveled, that's an interesting stat.
Honestly, what I love about this is that Threats as a player, and we're talking about like solo impact points, but just as a player overall, he has not yet got an FNCS championship, and I want to see that happen. I would love to see Booga and Threats come out on top, and Threats, I really truly believe does deserve that FNCS title.
Yeah, they are kind of that caliber duo we would expect to see in Globals, right? But again, 2 days of competition, 4 games down, 2 more to go today, another 6 tomorrow. That momentum, can they keep that going, Kelly?
I mean, definitely. We've seen them time and time again have an incredible performance, not just from the early game, but obviously mid and late game as well. But they do still have a few tie-ins in their way if they want to grab that first place spot.
There's a lot on the line, and I really want to see these teams step up and make it happen.
There you have it. It is that time, though. As all things come to an end, this part is over, but Game 5 is ready to go. I know you want games. Me too. Let's get back into the action. This is the FNCS.
Time truly flies when you're having fun, and I'm having the time of my life along with Monster D-Face calling the action. This has been 4 incredible games up until this point, and I'm hoping this 5th one doesn't disappoint.
I know it's not, because we're one step closer to closing out day 1, but here it is. You heard that battle bus, and so did I. Let us see what's going to unfold for us right now. I mean, Jacob, listen, we've had so much of our literal predictions come to life right now. The teams that we've expected to step up, perform, they're doing just that. Other teams that are having contested conversations on the drop are on the winning side, more or less. If you had your, again, your bets hedged. And that team I'm talking about is Kanata and Agers. Last game, they were dropped immediately. This game, touches down, gets a shotgun out the gate there. A little hesitation from Agers, and he sets up. Ooh, and super close. We know the difference is Sprite does find the headshot, and Kanata comes in for the trade. He has to get the full finish. He needs this siphon. There's no time to waste. Giants breaks open the build, and Kanata was close, but not close enough. Giants and Sprite win again here. Game 4, now game 5. They are poising and setting themselves up to have, again, just the upset, I think, of the weekend.
Yeah, and one thing that you kind of noticed, if you were not just necessarily distracted by that off-spawn exchange, is Bucky and Okus, again, stealing away those kinetic blades.
Yeah,
and they're going to go ahead and use that to dash back to their actual spot. But you see the feed getting lit up right now. Both Yamso and Rise taking down Demonics and Nick yet again. So that's another off-spawn win for them. Bryce and Chubbs uncontested, kind of pushing Paper and Shadow off. And honestly, so far, at least 2 big off-spawn wins for Bryce and Chubbs. Paper and Shadow are really going to have to think about if they're going to contest it at any point for the remainder of this event.
Zeus and Landjock, we've seen this fight break out a few times, and it hasn't looked good for Zeus or Landjock. Very tough position to be in when you have such an exceptional duo right above you. And again, the difference between the teams we've seen battle, Kanata and Agers, On1 and Zypha, when they win their drops, turn them into just such monstrous games, clearly showing us they are well within a top 10 caliber duo across North America. Think about that. Not just, oh, they're playing well today. No, they're playing well against the wider spread of the entire North America while contested on a drop. So, you know, who's to say what's going to happen if they can make it to global championships when they're just this.
Yeah, this is the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop was Landshock trying to fight back. 7 HP in a dream. Now he's stuck as a solo as his teammate Zuki did go down. He's fighting back, but it's just not going to be enough. On one makes that final shot count yet again. They picked up 2 eliminations. Towards the outskirts, though, you did see both Crisp and Yuz begin to put shots on. It wasn't a ton, but at least something added towards their Storm Surge as Commandment and Macwood so far out in the outskirts on an island away from the main island here. They're in a 2v1 situation where they're able to get that first elimination so far. Scare Bear's trying to use the kinetic blade to try to get out. The shots are still firing in, fielding anything to try to fight back and even shooting down Macwood, but it's not going to be enough. He still meets his demise, and that's going to be a ton of loot and a ton of space that Commandment and Macwood just won.
Last time we saw Commandment perform poorly in the FNCS, he switched up his duo and he went with a completely different strategy. Yes, turning around a top 3 performance. This time around, I mean, he's in a bit of a trouble right here. This is a team I think is probably the most underperforming that we've seen so far. Commandment and Macwood, we expect so much more from, but let's get to another team that has such a great set of accolades under their belt, even on today's competition. Duke and Edgy, they started off extremely strong. They've managed to continue to maintain that consistency there, but that was a close one. Was not given up for free.
Yeah, you're seeing how every single one of these games.
Dude,
are
I
starting
swear,
so
Arch,
far.
get away
And you
from
can see
me.
Duke alone, 16 eliminations,
Go.
average placement 7.
Stop trying to get in
And
front.
even though they're not getting a
Thank
victory
you.
out, they're staying consistent.
Dude, it's not
Consistency
even
wins overall. Quan Jock,
about
once
to
again,
report you.
trying to fight, take over this POI. That's Thork and Bolt who tried to switch things up.
I want to
They haven't been having the best day. Former NA champions. The shots are going to fire through. Trades between the two teams. As Thork and Bolt's now
I
get
swear.
hip to hip in the same box. Trying to stabilize
Kid,
themselves in this
get
position. Bolt's taking a lot of
alive.
damage. He's a big part of this team's aggressive nature, and he goes down. But you gotta go ahead and give it up to Thork. He was able to escape because now, as long as he stays alive, they at least have hope to try to get back into this game.
Jack really showing us why he is, of course, a previous FNCS champion wielder as well. Just notice what a professional player would do. He didn't care to reload. He says, nope, I'm going to go and step up, take this wall, use my shotgun. It's all I need. TK, Rituals, another excellent team. Of course, Naughty Nets is their playground. We were hyping them up last game, of course, as a team that can perform well in these early game head-to-heads. But it's the mid-game, it's the end game that, of course, has been becoming a little bit more difficult for TK and Ritual to find that conversion.
Every game so far, they kind of been splitting the loot, going their separate ways, and they might not like where they're at on the leaderboard because of that loot split between the two teams, so now they're trying to fight it out off spawn. One team is trying to claim all that loot as their own, but with a couple of shots being fired off, traded between the two. It's going to be TK and Rituals who actually choose to disengage back on over to the north side of Naughty Nets, where they kind of been typically playing. You see him using that bush, just waiting, looking back, seeing if anybody is daring enough to peek. As you see Miro bringing Cooper back into the game. May not be how they wanted to start game number 5, but this is exactly how you pick yourself up and get back into it.
I'm all for it. Miro, Cooper, starting to really cruise their way through right now. The last 2 games or so have these pretty far zones that have tilted their way towards the east sides, and it's been really well for them, as, of course, being one of those northern landing teams. Vuga and Threats on the opposite side of this conversation, of course. Don't really have too much competition near them, but for the first time, it does look like they're sensing some resistance. I can see a team, of course, located to the far north, and now one to the south side as well. So they might be, for the first time now, in a bit of a pinch here.
Yeah, they're separated, Vuga and Threats. But they're no strangers. They do kind of split up more often than not very, very early on in the game to try to get information early. Storm Surge is on one. Zypha do look like they have their opponents, Batman, Booga, and Bacon, slowly but surely trying to pick up the pace. Team that is kind of used to fighting, getting their Storm Surge very, very early on in the game. Hasn't come to fruition just yet, and that's how you see them. Last game and now this one, getting a little bit more proactive, closing the distance between there and their opponents, and trying to get anything for themselves to work with. Got to imagine a couple of shots were traded off and fired, but that's going to be a green light for Batman, Booga, and Bacon to kind of rotate to the center of this zone.
Yeah, dude looking like they are in some good spirits there as well. For Acorn and Cold, much slower paced game for them. For the first time, we see them positioned just outside the mega city here, looking to see what they can put as far as pressure down onto the inside. And a quick stat for crew here. Acorn and Cold have averaged 4.67 eliminations per game in weekly finals, the best of any duo in NA. They come on into the grand finals weekend, stepped right on up after a shy performance. I'll call it a shy performance because they didn't show up in game 1. But after that, they really came out and showed that.
Yeah, usually game number 1 is where our competitors, they kind of feel each other out. They figure out how they're going to play. Are you going to play the way you play in scrims? Are you going to play the way you play in a duo cash cup? Because you said it yourself, Monster. The finals lobby, where all these superstars come into one, our top 50 teams, it's just a whole different beast. This isn't something that anybody can necessarily prepare for at every single turn.
Swear,
so
get
it's
away
definitely
from
going
me.
to take a lot of these players to dig deep
Jeez,
and
how
kind of
many
figure out what
times
they're
I
going to do. And see Fatch and Pam,
not trying to be
almost with
mean.
the 3-2-1, put some great shots onto Chris.
on live stream?
But imagine where Yuz is at for now, but
Can I
interesting
do
decision though.
that?
They did a good amount of damage, but they're choosing to disengage to stay ahead of the zone.
And this, of course, is one of our top 10 teams. Fatch and Pamso have had quite the performance today. Just all in all, nothing flashy, but very consistent in the end game, causing upsets. As our longest and most consistent standing duo team that has played tournament after tournament, finals appearance after finals appearance, they truly are a model duo. And even now, see them taking in the sacrifices. Paper in Shadow. Here's someone who has completely mixed up his strategy this go around for the FNC. Yes, and it's worked out so far. Some might call it beginner's luck. New duos, you know, magical hit-off, if you want to call it that. But Shadow is just a great player when he's on point, when he's focused up. And that's what Paper talked about. Remember, we had that interview.
Yeah.
Gave us a little insight.
And that's what I want to see coming out from Paper and Shadow. The confidence to be able to kind of pop off at a moment's notice. 4 points per elimination do allow players with a Victory Royale to pop off. That's exactly what we saw from Bugha and Threats last game, and you're already seeing them off kind of a little bit of a hot start here. A huge weapons cache. They're staying on the southern portion of the map. They're doing so many great things, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it on over to Vivid to go ahead and throw that list out for us for what Bugha and Threats are doing.
Yeah, doing so many great things, off to a hot start, but it actually starts with their early game. There were some concerns coming into today, whether they would be able to get the majority of their split job. Of course, because of some of the way that some things are working out towards the chop spot, they are actually able to gather up all of this loot. Now, the bulk of this split job is actually going to be the building on that island just south of Mega City that has both of those kinetic blade spawns for this duo.
And it's crazy because I had a concern for a second. Did they actually get active? Did they find tags? They sure did. In the breakdown, you saw that. They were finding tags. They were, you know, putting the tags out on the teams in the distance and doing exactly what they're supposed to do. A duo of their caliber, really pressuring everyone around them. It's crazy how many seasons Bugha has demanded, not even demanded, just the players completely respect them. They just give him all the territory that he quite literally wants to claim.
Talk about territory and claiming it. This one's going to be a hard position to rotate through. 3 teams kind of stacked up here. A 4th one a little bit far off. 2 more trying to come into the distance. Cooper and Miro already forced to reboot each other back into the game. You can kind of see the mats. Only 4 builds to work with off the back of Miro. He was the one that was kind of brought back thanks to the augment mythic munitions. His inventory can definitely pack a punch, but you can see that what I'm looking for right now is a refresh. Who they can catch off guard, who they can take advantage of, because if they don't find one, getting through point A to point B at this next zone is going to be hard as can be for them.
Absolutely, and now they have to make a decision. They're going to go ahead and look to play the zone deep here, using the terrain to their benefit, but the mats are so low. It's a spot to be in, and there it is. They get tagged from behind. It's going to be all she wrote for a moment. If he can't get to some heals or some cover. There it is. Peeking down now. Cooper is all that's here.
All the decisions kind of running through Cooper's mind. Is this something I can do? Can I be the hero yet again? Yamzo is going to get credit for that elimination.
I just feel
at least Cooper in
weird.
the back of his mind is looking
Okay, you
for
only
the
need to like
timing
that
to try to grab
one.
that reboot card. Maybe get a second chance once more to bring Miro back into the game. Or some would say third chances because he already did it once. And you're seeing the position of where Yamzo and Rise actually were able to pick up that elimination from. Not too far off of their original drop spot, but that's what you see in this meta right now. So many skyscrapers, so many towers in the sky, and that's how a lot of these teams are picking up Storm Surge, or in this case, eliminations.
Yeah, and that is exactly the elimination we saw play out there. The full finish, too. Coming into this game, Mira, or Iamzo and Rise were just outside that top 10. These eliminations that they're racking up right now surely have closing the gap if the competitors haven't done the work as well. So 3 elims, you know, honestly, barely approaching the mid-game. What an excellent spot to be in. Way to position yourself. Talking about excellent spots, here we have this look at Bugha and Bacon. Doesn't get much better than this, as Rift Island is, of course, the place that's going to yield you that legendary pulse rifle.
Rift Island usually is the highest point of the map, and then I look in the distance. I see one of the buildings from New York, your hometown. The Empire State.
A lot of skyscrapers in the good old city of New York. Never know what you're going to catch there.
Visuals braids, though. See them trying to sneak past their opponents. They're well above the Storm Surge threshold, over 400. For them, it's just trying to find any position in towards zone, but they become the focus of the lobby, which is tough because both Visuals, Braids might not have any HP to regain. Visuals stuck with just 27. Flare guns going off as well. So position isn't going to be a secret to most in the lobby as the pressure continues from so many other directions. That's Dragon, that's Elise, that's Yusuf, that's Curious, all making them expend so many mats. You kind of see Visuals have some of his own, spreading it out, and get even less. So for them, they need a refresh for a multitude of reasons.
Demolition in full effect right here, and it costs them so much. Already down now to the bottom quarter of their medal. Very tough spot to be in. On one in a much more, I would say, friendly position. Things are looking pretty nice right here. Very pleasant, in fact. As he's got all the time in the world to go ahead and farm up. Taking the brick out this building here is going to be huge. Look at that. Even finds himself some spare mushrooms down low. Curiosity doesn't take down the cat this time. In fact, he gets rewarded here. So, well played for him. He's got a very nice rotate to make as well here down the left side. So On1 and Zypha poising themselves up. The last time we checked it with the team that was looking that good was Acorn and Cold in Game 3, and that turned out to be an excellent showing for them. So let's see what's going to happen here.
This is a team right here that throughout the 3 weekly finals, I had high hopes. They had such great performances, game after game, even picking up a victory royale throughout some of the weeks. But they left a lot to kind of wonder, but luckily that we keep talking about a 2-day affair. This is game number 5. It's not necessarily always how you start, it is how you finish. And for some teams, it is imperative that they finish strong on the day. You have to put yourself in a position on the leaderboard, that way you have a fighting chance.
The Augment Bush Warrior coming into full effect right there. You saw him nearly use that legendary slurp juice, but second thought, but nope, I'm gonna go on and heal up. That's massive. It just shows you how much Augments really shift the game and give players a chance to go ahead and play the best they can play. Here's Bucky and Okis, a very hit or miss team on the day. They've had some great show outs and some not so hot ones, and already right now they're making their way into the mid game. This is a true disruptor of a duo.
Honestly, I'm not necessarily surprised that they're down on Storm Surge, considering their flexible strategy, kind of landing on the outskirts of the racetrack, taking away those kinetic blades, then going on an adventure from there. c4s and Baka, we saw them not too long ago try to contest that Rift Island. So it's an interesting decision that they don't grab those overclocked pulse rifles, or at least not both of them. If any, if Baka even wanted it in his hands. But honestly, I can see why. Once you get that red eye in your hands, you're able to put down a lot of damage from Storm Surge. Even if you have a mythic munitions in your back pocket, you may not necessarily need an overclocked pulse rifle.
Absolutely, but what was that? Literally had a single build open while they were tarving and just clipped with a headshot twice from above. But Cold and Acorn are doing just that as well. This time to teams in the box. And this is why you gotta be extremely careful when you open up and edit. It does completely reset the health of the walls, and the punishment can start to fly back. This is the little things that Cold and Acorn look for and take advantage of. And this is, again, why they are almost leading the competition right now, truly catching up and closing the gap.
You can kind of see once again, he did bring Miro back inside of Cooper, but finally he does go down. That's c4s and Baka who get the eliminations and the refresh for their efforts. And that's big to kind of get their momentum going. I talked them up. Big before the show. I'm just hoping it can kind of hold on to their position. You see Poyo and Sphinx over towards Mega City trying to get into the zone as Dragon Elige. They got an elimination not too long ago. And that's why they're fighting for all this loot that's getting left behind.
This is a crazy pocket to be in as well. This back corner had Zypher and Crew. Zypher taken out by Muzz, who gets the full finish, and now you have all these players trying to rotate right now. Dragon and Leash have had, again, an exceptional track record of mid-game battles. As far as their end-game conversions, not quite where they want it to be. If they can patch that up on day 2, they'll be set up for a great grand finals and potentially even a chance at the global champions. Again, you have to make it into top 3. It's not just winning this FNCS and getting paid today and, of course, having your actual champions. Global championships is on the line right now. Arguably, the prestige of the weekend. There's going to be more than one winner. It's going to be 3 big people. 3 teams, of course, that are going to be extremely happy to celebrate, regardless of what.
We got a couple players already going for that global championship. Bolton Thorpe.
Oh, yeah.
Acorn, Cold, they already punched their ticket. So if anybody's wondering, what if they win? What if they get in the top 3? Well, it just rolls down to that next spot. Blessing in disguise for some is Dragon Elige putting the pressure on to the backside of zone. Finding a couple of shots, but definitely not what they're looking for as they take that first tick to Storm Surge before going right above. It's going to be huge for them to stay ahead of that curve, but it's going to be hard at the same time because Booga and Threats are literally right behind them.
They're doing well. Dragon and Liege now find themselves just on the edge of the zone here. Hound is the team on site. They're only 123 above, so you know they're gonna have to make a decision soon to potentially take this fight. See c4s in the feed there, finds TK. c4s, of course, have been following his story develop here. It's time to turn up. He's another one of those players that are inside the middle of the pack for pumping trashy. They're in the top 10, and what a way to continue to rack up and earn points here as they find Rokane, the vet.
That's a big impact elimination for them. Momentum shifting. Last 2 games, where you're at in the leaderboard at the end of the day goes to show, do I have to play catch up? Do I have to have a monster game? Do I have to do X, Y, Z? And if you're at the top of the leaderboard, you're controlling your own destiny. You're giving yourself more than enough room to work with. And if you kind of see, our top 5 teams are still alive, left in this lobby, including Duke and Edgy, who have been performing at a consistent, out-of-this-world standard so far on the day. If they're able to hold on to that one, they could be our favorites going into day 2.
They came into this game with a 20-plus point lead. 2 elims already are showing us that they're pacing their way to continue to maintain it. It's going to be extremely, and I mean extremely hard to catch them falling off the high horse right here and take advantage of their downfall. It's just not going to come easy when they're playing this well. This might be one of those ones where you chalk up, you sleep, and you rehearse for day 2. So far, Duke and Edgy are doing everything in their power to succeed. Look at the adjustments now we're seeing from Epic Whale and Reet. I love that we are seeing different styles of play here. Here's a team that also just has not given up. They're starting to fight back right now.
Yeah, and you're kind of noticing right now a Green Havoc. What is that? For a team for Epic Whale and Reet, who usually always grabs the vault loot from Mega City, it's a surprising turn of events. But they're still down on Swarm Surge. That has been the trend throughout our weekly finals leading up to this. How are they going to deal to it was one of the questions that I was asking myself. And man, are they landing shots with their back up against the wall. Dodging these Storm Surge attacks is going to be important because they definitely got a little bit of a journey to go before they get that safety of the zone.
And again, surprising foot rotate too. When we follow so many teams that have the kinetic blade baked into their strategy, this is like a breath of fresh air, but it's toxic. It's toxic air. It's pretty tough for them. You can see the punishment that comes in. It's not easy by any means. It costs you material and everything as well. It really does paint a picture for us. It shows us how much harder it is when you don't quite have your strategy play out the way you want it to. That vault is a key to turning the events.
In my history watching